Hey everybody, welcome to episode 8 of my Musical Moments series. Today we have a very special and actually very short episode because originally I was going to do an episode where I was talking about one specific Tchaikovsky symphony. But you know, when I was thinking about what made that symphony so amazing and innovative and unique, I realized I kind of needed to explain what a symphony traditionally was so that I could compare and contrast the two. So with that was born the idea for my series within a series, which I'm calling Bruce's 2-Minute Primer on Musical Form. And I'm about to show you episode 1 of that, which as you can guess is all about the symphony. But before I do that, I hope you'll take a moment and click like on this video and click subscribe if you haven't already sometime in the next 2.5 minutes, because that's when it'll all be over. So without further ado, here's episode 1. Enjoy. Welcome to Bruce's 2-Minute Primer on Musical Form, episode 1, The Symphony. Now, we're not talking about the symphony orchestra here, a musical ensemble of players that comes together to play music, but instead here a symphony, a musical form, or a way to organize different sections of related music that's considered part of one whole. Now, what we think of as a symphony today is mostly thanks to these two guys. One of them you have definitely heard of, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. He wrote 41 symphonies in his short life, died at the age of 35, and has some success during his lifetime after being paraded all over Europe by his father as the greatest child prodigy in the history of Western music. More on that someday in another video. The other guy is Franz Joseph Haydn. He lived to be 77 and wrote 104 symphonies. Yes, that's right, 104. So, vaguely writing around the same time in music history, between the two of them, they wrote 145 symphonies. So they essentially get credit or the blame for what we call a symphony today. But the general rules are as follows. Symphonies have 4 movements. They are generally arranged as a fast one, a slow one, a minuet, and then an even faster one. A closer look at each movement here shows us that the first movement is fast, or in Italian we usually say allegro, but usually it has a slower, sometimes rhythmically and or harmonically vague introduction before launching into the main theme, which is that fast part, and it's usually quite memorable or catchy. The slow movement that follows is usually something quiet and pretty to contrast the opening, and here the composer shows off their lyricism and elegance and their ability to write slow, quiet, and beautiful music. It's usually a showcase for the wind soloists in the orchestra as well. The minuet, then, is just a fancy way of saying a dance in 3, like a waltz. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Admittedly, composers often mess with the order of these two middle movements, sometimes switching them around, but this form here is the more common version. The last movement is almost always fast and meant to be a big, impressive finale. Lots of fast notes, lots of energy, and again, the composer tries to have a memorable melody and lots of brass and timpani, and later on in music history, lots of percussion. So taken as a whole, this is the general form of the symphony. That's not to say every symphony conforms to this structure rigidly. If anything, what makes specific works interesting is how composers experiment with this form, push these boundaries, and maybe even break with tradition and do something different. But you have to know the rules before you can wisely bend or break them. Many of my friends who are engineers love music, and I've always suspected it's because, much like being an engineer, music asks us to be creative within an established set of rules. So there you have the basic form of a classical symphony.